Organize Me Radio, episode 58, Professional Women and ADHD. I'm Naeemah Ford Goldson. Hi everyone, welcome to Organize Me Radio. I'm Naeemah Ford Goldson, and today's guest is an early childhood education administrator, and she is my best friend. Please welcome Joanna Rush. Welcome, Joanna.
Hi, how are you?
Joanna, oh my goodness. Okay, so I've been wanting you on here for a while just because you're so fun. Like I don't know if people understand like how fun you are. Like we've been friends since sophomore year in high school, which is 20 plus years, so we won't be
That's
too
all we're gonna say.
specific.
It was yesterday. It was
Yeah,
yesterday.
just yesterday. Just yesterday. You know, we're just ride or die, but just yesterday. But so anyway, so we are going to talk about basically living with ADHD and being a professional. But first, can you tell everyone a little bit more about you?
Um, I have been working since I graduated from high school, working in childcare, early childhood. I've been a worked in all ages from birth until school age, and I love it. I have children. I have a son. We like to they play a lot of sports. So we will go to sports, hang out with friends, try and watch TV, relax. But usually we're always on the go and I can't sit still. So it's perfect.
It's funny because so you're not the only person in my life who has ADHD. My mother, my biggest client, I always tell people, and that's something that, my siblings and I have had to deal with. And it seems like as she's getting older, it's like we see it more and more. What is it like for you living with ADHD and then working and supervising people and things of that nature?
Um, you know, Definitely there are challenges. It's challenges for having other people to understand, to know kind of how you think or why you do what you do. But there's also really, like, honestly, I have grown to embrace it, educate myself on it, especially since my son has it too. It's hereditary, but it's definitely challenging, and you have to find ways that work for you. So you definitely do a lot of research, find different things that have worked for me, for you. Um, Not everything has been easy. Not everything has came um, just overnight. And it has taken me a while to learn that. It has taken me a while to learn that I can't be a perfectionist, and that also to know that what I do is good, to recognize that and to appreciate the work that I do instead of like always finding the negative, just because it's when you are going through, like, I didn't find out till I think when I got into college, but it was difficult in school growing up and just always trying to figure out why I just couldn't figure it out, or I couldn't understand, or why everybody else was and I couldn't do it. And then when I finally found out, I felt a lot better, but it's also then the process of taking medication. But if you take the medication, that does not solve it. You have to do the therapy, find ways to make it work for you, because the medicine's only going to do so much. And that's been a process. Um, Even now, I'm still learning. I think the more that I've gotten older and the positions that I have moved into, which has been a lot more work, has been a lot more challenging for me. I will say that. So it's working through that and trying to stay positive and know that, like, it's a blessing to me. Like, I wouldn't change it. I would for sure, if I come back in another life or whatever, fine. That's fine. Give it to me. Like, it's a blessing. It's just figuring out what works for you, what's best for you, and understanding. Um, that there's nothing wrong. It's just a different way you think than everybody else. Everybody thinks different. Let's think about that. Everybody really does think different. So just because someone who isn't neurodivergent doesn't mean that their brain is any better, or their brain is um normal, or their brain is, you know what I mean? Like, everybody, even if they are not neurodivergent, they are, everybody still has a different brain. They think different, do different, everything. So it's just, unfortunately, society put a label on it in the beginning that wasn't as positive. But when you really figure it out and do your research, neurodivergent people are very intelligent, very creative, very loyal people. Probably because, like, I say sometimes when you're really loyal, it's just sometimes you just forget so much, because we do forget. I'm joking, but um, it's been a process, but I feel like I wouldn't change it. And having it has really, really helped me as a mother, and with my son, with my experiences, to help him now in what he's going through as a teenager and in high school. So,
I love how you mention, it's basically like, your brain just works differently. That's the same with, autism. And I find myself,
mm-hmm,
my son, for people who don't know, my youngest son, Gavin, has autism. He was diagnosed at age 4 and he's nonverbal.
mm-hmm,
And he uses a communication device to talk to people. Um, and I feel like there are a lot of people who still don't really understand, even though I don't know what the statistic is about people living with ADHD, but it has to be like, a
it's
lot,
increased.
right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
there's so many
increased.
people like in my family that I know that are, right. And then
Mm-hmm.
like with autism, it's like I don't remember the exact number, but something like 1 in 47 boys, right?
Yeah.
Like 1 in 50 something kids. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that someone has autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like even now, people are like, oh, well, how does that work? And it's like, come on. It's like Gavin, he understands everything. He just cannot communicate like with
Yeah.
words to you. Now he can sign, he can put in
Well,
his tablet what he wants.
mm-hmm. Well, and that's also like autistic. It's even so for me, and it's probably the same for Gavin. For me, for my brain, it's going a mile a minute. So I'll talk, like, some people will say you'll have to slow down. I even have to slow down. So that's probably the same thing for Gavin, to the point that, like, it's so much going on that he can't process it. And there's a lot of people that are like that. That's completely. I've had a lot of, like, autistic kids in my classroom, and had I literally, last night, it's funny that you brought that up. One of my kids, he is now going to be a freshman in high school. They're a set of twins. And we went to a game and we saw his mom, and she got so excited because I became very close with them. Very, very close. I had such a special bond with him, and both kids, with him especially. And she even said that she was so nervous to have her children in my class, because I had such a structured, kind of strict but structured class, but also to help them, like, to grow, to motivate, to push them to do more, to want to do more. And the growth that she saw when he came into my class was, she just said, it's, you knew exactly what you're doing, like, you just knew. And I said, yeah, that they need that. We all need the structure, we all need that, but we also need that nurturing and caring and inclusive, open environment where you are accepted no matter who you are, what you are, how your brain works. We are all the same. There's, you know, just think
I
different.
Girl, I completely agree. One of my friends sent me something, not a quote, but she sent me something that said something like, um, I just want my son to be able to be in the room and be who he is without feeling like he has to fit into what everyone else wants him to be, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
No, that's 100% feeling that way when you're talking to people or coming into a room. I think anybody should feel I think a lot of people do, but it's harder for other people. So yes. And to have people not looking at you, or
right.
feel just it's frustrating. And that's one of the barriers that you have. Like, you can say, oh, I'm completely fine. But there's some days where I'm just like, well, I can't. Like, I'm overwhelmed or overstimulated, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm no expert on ADHD. I do have a certificate of study through the Institute for Challenge and Disorganization, which is basically an organization that professional organizers, psychologists, or whatever can go to educate themselves on like
Okay.
neurodiversity or hoarding or things of that
Yeah.
nature. So I'm no expert, but through that, I've learned that people with ADHD, like you said earlier, are some of the brightest minds, are some of the most creative. How are you? And you mentioned how sometimes your thoughts are going, a mile per minute, whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
how are you able to compartmentalize ideas that you have? How do you cope with that?
Um, I got a lot of post-it notes. I've gotten better where I'll have an idea and a lot of like some of my employees know, most of them do, but I'm not hidden behind telling people that I have it, just because if I can help people educate, make them feel comfortable, then there's nothing to be ashamed of. So even if I'm in like a classroom or something and I have an idea, I'm like, oh, this, and this. And then I'll either verbalize them, hey, write that down, or write it on a post-it note, or you might remember this, or actually I'll even say send me an email and then I will pin it and then work from there. But another thing that has been working for me as so last Friday it was just a lot in my brain and a lot of things that I know that I want to do or have on my plate, but it's like create like stuff that I really can see our center grow. So I just did a brain dump, like a whole page, and it was just all over. And it was only one page because I knew if I kept going, I could keep going. So, and that was just my work one. And then what I've been using is the Eisenhower matrix. I found a post-it notes that I was going to show that. You can buy it off of Amazon, and it's urgent, like what you need to do now, what you need to do later, what you can delegate, and what you can delete. And it's just put into four sections. So my plan was I actually was just going to build like a maybe like a notebook or a binder, and I printed an actual like template of it, and then I'll take sections like so everything I wrote, then I'll break it down to, let's say, classrooms, to parent groups, to anything like that. And then I will do that and divide it so it's not all jumbled on one paper. And then I can kind of section it and add to it. Or, oh, yeah, there's this. And then I can refer back to it. I like to write. I like the hands-on stuff. I like paper. I have an office supply problem. So if I can make sure I can make it fun and creative for me, while I'm doing something that's not maybe the most interesting thing to me at times, but it's things that I have to do and things that are required. So I can make it more fun and creative for me to be more motivated to get it done. Because there are some things that it's very hard for me to sit down and just start something. So that is something that I felt like would get me. And then once I start, then I kind of have steps and things that I can follow, if that makes sense.
Hmm. So you have been in your field for over 20 years. You are a high achieving woman, and you also supervise people. How does that work for you in the workplace? How do you feel like it affects your leadership skills in any way, your organizational skills, or does it, you know, heighten them and make it better in the workplace?
Um, so one thing for me is that I've noticed that I have a very good, like a coaching ability. I love talking with people and finding out the whys and seeing how they work and then talking to them, really building that verbal conversation with them. Sometimes it can get overwhelming because I'll have, I have 15 plus employees, so they all need something, and they'll call or they'll show up in my office, and so sometimes it does get overwhelming and I feel disorganized, or I feel bad because sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot to go back and talk to them. Oh my goodness, I forgot to do this. And so I if I do at that moment, I will go, but I'm not ashamed to being like, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. This is what we talked about. How about this? Or well, how is it working? So trying to make sure that they know that I value them, that I'm there for them, but also helping them understand that I'm also human and I'm also, yes, I am your supervisor, but I will make mistakes, or I will, but I'm not, I'm a, I'm at, I can be at a point where I'm like, hey, let's work on this. I'm sorry, I forgot. I had a list of stuff, got distracted. What can I do? That is something that has been a struggle for me, like in the beginning, because it's just like I love talking, obviously, but also like coaching and helping people, but also I have to sit down and do my job too. And so um, that has been, I guess the field I'm in is really good because I am working with employees and teachers and other people. And that's part of our thing is like partnerships and talking and people. So that is good. It's just making sure that I have boundaries. That is a big thing is boundaries because neurodivergent people, ADHD people, will say yes to everything. We won't say no. Sometimes we won't say no because we'll feel bad. And then that's where we get really overwhelmed and we don't know what to do or where to start. And like that's when the steps of therapy or working through things is very, very important. That mindfulness of trying to stay focused and not get down and not go down the wrong path and give yourself grace. So it's very important to give yourself grace with employees and being a supervisor because you're growing too.
Right.
So you can't be perfect. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but it's important to give yourself grace and then just move on. And what are you going to do different? And how can you change it?
So, what do you think is your greatest strength?
I've always been able to find the positive, always laugh about things and keep moving, not try and dwell in the negative, but also encouragement and picking people up and picking myself up and finding ways that will help me stay motivated, creative, but also other people. Just not giving up, always fighting and not letting anybody define me or my thoughts or how I feel because that's when you aren't your true self.
I love that. And I can definitely second that. Like I feel like you always find the positive in any situation. I mean, even if we have to make ourselves laugh to prevent us from crying, right?
Yes.
but but I completely agree with that, finding the positive and everything. And I feel like you are such a good listener. And if anybody should be in a leadership position, it's definitely you, because you truly care about people. And I feel like that comes through. And I feel like that's always come through as long as I've known you. Like, I love you. My entire family loves you,
My
so.
family. Yeah. I just, you when you have interactions or situations with people where they just don't, or you with yourself that you're not feeling you can be yourself, it sucks. And you just don't, I don't want anybody to feel that way. But yes, like listening, I mean, sometimes I'll ask you to repeat it. I just feel like we all want to be heard. And it's important for some people to know that. And you learn things from people when you're listening. Like if you're truly listening, you can learn. And I feel like you can get a very good observation and feel for people of who they are and like what they like. You just if you listen you can learn more than just telling them what to do.
So, what advice would you give to other high achieving people, other people who hold high positions, that are living with ADHD?
Um, resources, find people, um, give yourself grace, give yourself time. But also, one of the things that I did is it was a test, and it helped me figure out like balancing, like what is my triggers for ADHD, or what are things that it's almost like you see it on paper, but you kind of know, and just realizing like what affects me is my environment. And my office is all windows, and then out the windows is like the hall, and I can see the children and everything. And so it's already hard for me to sit down. So just figuring out the ways that are best for you and do that for you. And then making sure that you're sharing with someone on your team, like this is what works best, or this is how this is going to help me. So you have the support. Make sure you kind of have the support and share. It's nothing that um, to be afraid of to not share, because if you want to succeed, we all need a support system. We all need someone or something. So I joined the ADA group. I and there's different webinars that you can get on for that. It helps with planning. Just try to find the system that works for you is what I would say too. It's still a learning process for me, so I don't have the best advice, but what's best for you, but keep trying. If something doesn't work, try something else and stay consistent with it until you know. And then if it's good, then don't change it until, like, if you get bored, then add something on. But find something that works best for you and stay consistent.
All right, that is some good advice. So, do you have a process for staying organized at work?
Like I said, the Eisenhower thing has really helped. I have a sticky note. It's this. I finally found it. So it says do, decide, delegate, and delete. And it really, really helps me. And it's a post-it note. So you can just, there's sometimes where I have too much or whatever, or I'll do it for a day and I can take it and change it, and that helps. Um, Notebooks, or I have one main notebook that is like the main one that I always go to for everything, instead of, I tried in the big, I did a few months ago, I was like, oh, I'll get a notebook for each section, and that did not help. That was too many. So now I have one. Make sure I date it. That helps me. I have like a little light board that kind of gives me like some of the affirmations, when you're sitting there and you get frustrated, you just need something like a reminder. I am really big on having like, kind of, you kind of see I have little sayings and stuff like that, and that is something, it helps me to keep going, not to give up. But that helps me stay organized. Um, just making sure that my area is clean and not cluttered, which I will not sit here and say I'm perfect. It's been to the point that I'm like, okay, because I am also my office seems to be the dumping ground when stuff gets delivered or stuff needs to get to teachers. So I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't have either if I have to do this, I have to figure out a way to get it to them right away, or put it where I know where it's going to be. So when it's ready to give to them, then I can give to them. So trying to make sure that my environment and my desk and that is not cluttered, but also I have, it's kind of hard for me because I kind of feel like I might have FOMO, but I have to shut my blinds. I shut my blinds to really, because that is really, really a big effect, very effective for me. And I have music playing, but it depends. But usually it's something that's going to level or calm me and not make me more wired or overstimulated, I should say.
So, what about your home life? Now, do you see the effects of living with ADHD in your home life? Do you have systems that you're able to follow at home and have everyone get on board with it?
So I think now with my son being older and being busier and things like that, the systems I'm trying to get into now, I'm not the greatest. Usually it's we've gotten the calendar down. We got a calendar down. When we did a big cleaning job the other day, and it was my son and I wrote down each room by color, and then I just wrote like the different things that we needed to make sure we got done. So then when we were doing it and I thought, okay, we took a break and I wiped off. We did this, we did that, we did this. Had him download I have the Pomodoro app on my phone. And that is another thing. I should have said that earlier. It works really good where it's 25 minutes of working and then you get a 5-minute break and it just lets you know. And at first you're like, I don't know, but it actually works. So it helps my son too. So using that in my house. I think my biggest struggle is laundry and clothes, and laundry, and getting everybody on board on that is, you know, and laundry isn't fun. It's the thing that, that thing where you just don't want to do it and you're going to drag your feet. And some people are better about, okay, I'm going to go do it. I just have to do it. But for me, that is like getting started is the hardest thing for me because it doesn't sound fun. It doesn't sound interesting. And then I'll be like, well, even if I fold my clothes, then someone's gonna dump it on the floor or someone, so then it's kind of
No.
it's just frustrating. So, but I also am working on decluttering and getting rid of like throwing away things. Like I'm just at a point where I'm like throwing away, we don't need it because the less we have and we just have what we need is going to be what's best. Because I'm the type of person, if there's too much, I am overwhelmed to the point that I'm just like frozen. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So it's almost best for me to just, well, it's not best for me, but sometimes I'm just going to sit here and then I still am frustrated later. So that's not working. So that's what I've been doing is getting rid of and organizing and decluttering. So we're just we don't have that option anymore because the overwhelm feeling is something that it's hard. It's really hard to get rid of. It's really hard to not feel that way. And when you go in your bedroom or you go in and you feel just that it's just I don't want that. And I don't
Yeah.
want that from my family either.
Yeah. And I feel like you mentioned in like the laundry and everything like that. I feel like that also has a lot to do with the emotional labor portion of what we women have to deal with on a daily
Mhm.
basis, the thing that we have to think about, the things that we
Mhm.
have to do, the things that we have to figure out, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yes.
hate laundry. Well, who's gonna figure out what happens with the laundry? It's probably gonna fall on you, right? So if anything, like whether you outsource it or if you
Mhm.
create some kind of chart on who's gonna do laundry on what day, it's gonna fall on you. So that's another tough piece of
Yes.
that whole puzzle to where, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I have
Oh,
to
well,
deal
I
with
also
it,
think that like society makes us feel like it's not necessarily like, I mean, it doesn't have, it's not like that in every home, but society makes us feel. So even if we don't necessarily like, my husband is good. Like if I work late, he is the one that'll cook the food for dinner. And it still bothers me, but I know I shouldn't, but it does because it's like society says that we got to be able to cook and clean and do the laundry and make sure that the house looks immaculate and also be a, working woman. I don't, I can't sit still enough to stay at home. I give props to all the women that can do that.
yeah.
But it's just that mindset of, that's what you feel like you have to do.
You got to let that go because I don't feel
I
like I
know.
have to do any of that stuff.
I've
but
gotten better. I have gotten
but
better.
I will say I do have an issue of wanting to control things. So that's my
Yes,
thing that's hard
yes,
for me to let go. So I'm like, no, I want it folded my way. I
yes,
want this done my way,
yes, yes,
which
and that's
which makes it a little tough and overwhelming because then I still end up taking on, things
mhm,
that I shouldn't take
yes,
on.
where you should say no and not say yes.
Right. But I'm slowly letting that go. That's my weakness and I'm slowly letting that go. So, anyway, what about some of your favorite organizing products? Do you have any favorites that you use, any go-tos?
If I could fill my house with like the cute little organizing acrylic containers and just have it perfect like that, I would. So that's some stuff that I've slowly like saved or I'm gonna get. I anything to organize, but like for sorting, like for desks and stuff, I have like I actually took like it's really cute and it's actually here, I'll show you. Um it's like it's actually find it in the bathroom area. It's like an organizer for makeup stuff, but I have
Mhm.
all my stuff here and I have my fun little pens, which I noticed there's some that are missing. But this is like something that helps me, that when I need something right away, I have my post-it notes, I have my stuff there. Um, Little just different things. I have like a little organizer file things that help, that I put stuff for me to get organized. It's my job is, it's very busy. I am very very busy, and I feel like we all feel like there's not enough hours in the day. So it's just finding a system that, like, it may not be perfectly organized, but I know where it's at and I know that's what works for me. So anything that, something that's fun to you, I would say, to have organized. But that's, for me, it's like the little cute acrylic containers or something like that. If I could just fill my house and have all the organizing in my closets and everybody, it's just the fear of like, it has to stay like that. Like, don't move it. Don't, that's the control thing. Like, you can't, it has to stay pretty the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you do have to, once you put a system in place, you have to maintain it. You have to
Yeah.
refresh it. You
Yeah.
might not have to do it every single day, but ever so often you just might have to refresh it and then it can stay that way.
Yeah.
As long as everyone in the house is on board.
Right. I love what I, when you show me pictures or I see things and I'm like, ooh, I want, or I always ask you for help because I know no judgment. That's
Oh,
one
of
thing
course. Of course not.
important to having people in your life. No judgment.
So, Joanna, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy chatting with you. What is your greatest professional achievement?
Honestly, like, being able to stay in this industry as long as I've had, and working this many years and still loving and being happy in my job, and also working towards my goals at a pace that is good for me, and not rushing and feeling so, where I'm at now in administration, this is one of my goals. I've been slowly achieving from education curriculum to assistant administrator, and then I want to be the head administrator, and then if I can keep going I would love to, but I work in an accredited center, and that's probably like, that's the best early childhood care that you can get. So for me, where I'm at right now is probably what my highest achievement, that I'm still here, but I'm moving up and I've grown and I love my job still.
I love it. Joanna, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being so open and letting us know, how you cope with having ADHD and how you operate and move through life. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, anytime.
Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to tune in next time for an all new episode.